My entitled mom tried to take my house for my pregnant sister, claiming she deserves it more than I do. I am a boy who is 31 years old, and I have a sister who is 28 years old. She has always been my mother's favorite child, but she has never been my father's favorite child. In the years that I was a teenager, my parents divorced because my mother had an affair with a former boyfriend from high school. Unfortunately, my sister was her little mini-me, and she has always been domineering, manipulative, and narcissistic. She has always presented herself in this manner. Additionally, it appeared as though our mother believed that she had complete control over me. When she snapped her fingers, she would give me orders like a dog. She would do this consistently, despite the fact that it was humiliating. My sister never stopped supporting her. It should come as no surprise that following the divorce of our parents, I moved in with my father on a full-time basis, while my sister continued to reside with my mother. Unless it was about money, the two of them were very similar to one another, and they did not communicate with my father very often. In spite of the fact that I am more like my father, he was more business-oriented and started teaching me how to handle his field of work when I was 16 years old. I became fairly skilled at it, and after working for my father for a period of 12 years, I was promoted to the position of partner in his company. A terrible event occurred approximately 8 months ago. Everything was going swimmingly up until that point. My father's immune system had been compromised for a significant portion of his life due to his heavy smoking habit, and he passed away at the age of 60 after contracting COVID-19. After my father's burial, which was held in a socially distant location, I finally got to interact with my mother and sister for the first time in years through a video call. It was my father's decision to be cremated, and he was buried at a nearby cemetery. Hence, there was neither a body nor a casket there. Despite the fact that my sister seemed to be in mourning, my mother remained nonchalant during the entire process, which surprised me. When she last saw my father, she yelled at him that he owed her more money and threatened to sue him. He left after this confrontation. She then threatened to start a lawsuit against him. In terms of alimony and child support, he had simply paid the minimum amount that was mandated by the law. He even made a contribution of $330,000 to the education fund for my sister. However, a judge's order meant that he was no longer legally obligated to provide my mother money 10 years after the divorce. This legal obligation had been lifted. She is not even close to being broke. She has been working at the same job for about 30 years. She is the owner of the old family home that we used to share, and she routinely leases out 2 of the rooms in the house as Airbnb rentals. She does not have any problems with her finances. The reading of my father's will took place after the funeral. Apparently, he was under the impression that if his habit of smoking excessively would not end his life, then something else would, and he even laughed about it on a video that had been recorded beforehand. To a large extent, he left everything to me, including his home, all of his assets, and the majority of the income from his business. In addition to around $10,000 in cash, he left my sister a Nissan Altima from the year 2015, along with a few other goods that she had claimed to be hers since the divorce. My mother was only given a sum of $1,000. Additionally, I was given the remaining portion of his estate, and my girlfriend is currently residing with me in the house that my father had bequeathed to me. Following the completion of 2 years of community college, my sister moved in with her boyfriend and began working online part-time for a number of years. During this time, she became pregnant, but unfortunately suffered a heartbreaking miscarriage. Because we had almost no communication with one another and no one informed me, I did not become aware of this until after the funeral. When lockdown occurred, her boyfriend's job began to gradually downsize, and soon he was only able to work part-time. This brought about a negative impact on both of their finances, to the point where he finally informed her that she needed to look for better employment as well, because he was looking for a second job. After that, she fell pregnant once more, despite the fact that she and her partner had taken precautions. Others continue to refer to her child as a miraculous baby. A knock on my door came as a complete surprise to me one evening. As soon as I responded, both my mother and my sister greeted me with a frigid reception. Both of them entered without anyone asking them to, and they immediately made themselves at home in my living room. A look of bewilderment was exchanged between my girlfriend and I questioned why they had come to visit. It appeared as though my sister was giving herself a tour of my home, laughing and looking around, opening doors. My mother, who had just sat down on my sofa, reached out with her fingers and requested a refreshing bottle of water. After my girlfriend had gotten the water for her, I asked again why they were there. It appeared as though my sister was overjoyed, but she chose to ignore me and proceed with her inspection of my home. A short while later, I was able to hear her exclaim, "Mommy, it's perfect," from the opposite end of the corridor. Yes, she continues to refer to her as Mommy. My mother ultimately stood up and said, "Well, I think it's time you did your brotherly duty." I reacted, surprised by her statement. "What?" My mother continued, saying, "Now that your father has passed away, this house ought to have been given to me because I was his only spouse. However, you are still able to make the necessary repairs at this time. It is possible for you to get a brand new home because you generate a lot of money. This one is particularly significant for your sister because she is the one who is actually carrying the baby that is on the way. On the other hand, if you are adamant about remaining, you could just live in a single room and pay for all of the expenses until you make the decision to leave." After reading a sufficient amount of Reddit, my girlfriend and I were able to determine where this was headed and what would occur if I allowed it to continue. I suppose you could say that we were mentally prepared for what was to come. I inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly before uttering out loud, "That is not effing happening, especially in my own home. You do not have the authority to boss me around. And yeah, I do make a lot of money, but just like my father, I'm going to put it away until I really need it, even though you don't seem to care about it. Stop," my mother yelled, as she began to lash out at me with her fingers just like she had done in the past. "It is me, your mother. Because I'm the one who brought you into this world, and because I am the one who holds authority here, you will do as I say. God is what I am to you. In other words, when I say jump, you respond by asking how high. In all actuality, this house belongs to me, and your sister will be living here. The following is an official notice of eviction. On the other hand, because I am a good person, I will give you 2 weeks to start packing your belongings and transferring the deed to me." I had a thought that went something like, "This can't possibly be true." Then, however, I reached for my mobile phone and started making calls. Suddenly, my mother jumped up and asked, "What are you doing?" While she was standing there, I answered by saying, "I'm going to do what I should have done as soon as this started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." My phone was eventually knocked out of my hands as she started swiping back and forth toward me. After that, she made an attempt to walk on it, but I was able to grasp it before she could do so. "That's it. If you don't leave, I'll force you out." My mother gave me a slap across the cheek, and I returned the favor by hitting her back with a backhand blow that was twice as powerful, causing her to fall back down onto the couch. She yelled, "How dare you?" while placing her hand over her face, which was reddening and covered with makeup. She was completely taken aback by the situation. I went back to dialing my phone and informed her that I would call the authorities to remove her from the premises if she did not cooperate with my request to leave. I was in the middle of dialing when my sister suddenly jumped in between us, stretched out her arms, and told me, "Do the right thing for once in your life and be a good big brother." I lost my temper and yelled out, "Oh, so you think I'm a terrible sibling? I have been required to work for a living ever since I was a very young teenager. I was responsible for all of the housekeeping while you spent the entire day sitting on your butts, either playing video games on your computer or chatting with your circle of friends. And you would take the money that I had worked so hard to get in order to go shopping after you had already spent all of your allowance. You are nothing but a thief and a leech. Absolutely nothing is owed to you. I want both of you to leave this place as soon as possible before I dial the final number." For the first time, my sister started crying like a baby and said, "Mommy, please make him stop." After that, my mother started giving her a death gaze, after which she began hugging her and caressing her cheeks. After that, she mentioned, "You know, if you do call the cops, I can just tell them you hit me." It appeared as though she thought she had become more clever. "And who knows," she continued, "maybe I'll let everyone know that you wanted to do something far worse to a pregnant woman who was in need of assistance. It is not something that I believe would be beneficial for you to do." It was with a raised hand that I was able to interrupt her and say, "Just stop." During the entire time, my girlfriend has been recording. "In case you haven't noticed," I stated. "This indicates that we have video evidence of you assaulting me first, and then publicly declaring that you would lie to the police during the incident. I don't believe that would be beneficial to your reputation at work or for your relatively tiny Airbnb business. If looks could kill, my mother's glare would have blown me up like a tactical nuclear weapon." Nevertheless, she quickly regained her composure and started pulling my sister toward the door by the arm. My younger sister, who was behaving like a complete and utter child, managed to escape our mother's grasp and immediately plopped down on my front step, throwing a fit. "Are you able to see now?" I questioned my mother after giving her a quick glance. "This is the result of the spoiled upbringing she had from you." After she had finished staring at me, I watched as my mother attempted to remove my sister from the front steps of my house. On the other hand, my sister grabbed onto the handrail of the porch and cried out, "You promised me," over and over again. As I stood by the door, I laughed and yelled out to both of them, "Never come back." At that moment, my mother reprimanded me and turned back to the task of getting my sister off the porch. Despite the fact that it took her a few minutes, she was ultimately successful in persuading my sister to get up and leave with her. She referred to me as a cruel and heartless jerk who will go to hell for this. I chuckled once again and responded, "There's also a special place in hell for liars and narcissists who try to manipulate others to get their way." I simply held up my smartphone once more, showing the recording, and said, "The clock is ticking, Mom." This caused my mother to tighten her fists, ready to yell something more, when I added, "Get off my property." After that, my mother accompanied my sister to the car, gave me one more condescending look, and then disappeared into the distance. I had the impression that that was the final chapter, but my mother never lets things go for good. A few days later, I started receiving messages online from people I knew and family members. A good number of them were furious with me, while others merely had inquiries about what was being posted. Because both my sister and my mother had blocked me on social media, I was unable to view what they were saying on my Facebook account. My girlfriend, on the other hand, was able to view everything because they had their profiles open. Screenshots of the posts were captured, and some were printed out. Both of their profiles contained entries that referred to me as a self-centered and cruel jerk who stole the house that was meant to be my sister's inheritance right in front of her eyes by paying off the attorney who handled Dad's estate. This is a total and utter lie, and both of them are aware of it. I called my attorney, who was also my father's attorney and a trusted family friend, and gave him copies of all the screenshots from Facebook as well as the video my girlfriend had filmed on the day my mother ordered me to move out of my house. My intention was to take it a step further. Instead of sending a simple cease and desist, he wrote them a more detailed letter. I advised him to send it by express mail that required a signature in order to determine whether or not they had received it. It was on the same day the letter arrived that my mother called me in an angry state. I warned her that if she and my sister did not remove all of the false social media posts they made about me and reveal the truth, I would send an email to her entire family, her boss, and upload the videos we captured of her online. In addition, I would sue her. She accused me of being crazy, claiming that she had only done what she did for the sake of my sister. She then proceeded to give a full-fledged lecture during which she reiterated her belief that my sister still required my house more than I did. I made it abundantly apparent that I did not care what she believed, and I warned her that her career would be ended if she did not remove everything and reveal the truth. It was with reluctance that she responded, "Fine, you win." After hanging up the phone, she commented, "You should keep the stupid house." At that very moment, every single dishonest post that had been made on their profiles disappeared. I was unblocked, and my mother presented me and everyone else with a half-hearted apology, explaining that she had spoken hastily because she believed that my sister required my house more than I did, due to the fact that she is pregnant and broke. On the other hand, she admitted that the house was legally mine according to the will my father had left behind, and she was aware of this fact before he passed away. Therefore, she had no right to attempt to claim it. In addition, my sister expressed her regret, but she virtually reiterated everything that our mother had said. She stated that she had just agreed with her beliefs and then blamed what she had done on our mother and the pregnant emotions she was experiencing. The responses came in on both my mother's and sister's pages for a period of time, and a significant number of people were upset by the fact that they attempted to seize my house. I received a lot of sorries and my bads from people who had previously believed her, but all it did was show me who was more on her side in the first place, because they were also willing to swallow her nonsense. Regardless, I could not believe it. The majority of them were members of her side of the family. She was not believed by anyone on my father's side of the family, and they were vocal about their lack of belief. In the end, my sister and her boyfriend decided to move in with our mother in order to save money. Nevertheless, she kept them in the basement in order to maintain the operation of her Airbnb. Perhaps due to the trick she had played earlier, my mother offered little support, and my sister started complaining on social media about how she was unable to live upstairs. I am very certain that the two of them are arguing because all my sister did after that was complain online. Looking back, when my sister and mother came to my house, the first peculiar thing that struck me was their sheer audacity in even showing up. Based on my understanding, I believe my mother must have told my sister something like, "It's a done deal, you're getting this house," and my sister somehow believed it. This is the only interpretation I can come up with. It is either the case that my sister is so naive that she believes our mother has the authority to take the property away from the owner and give it to her, regardless of who legally owns the house, or that our mother simply lied and made up some kind of reasoning as to why the house was rightfully hers. I thought my mother's notion was terrible. She essentially told me, "It's time to do your brotherly duty," and apparently believed I would just hand over the house at that point. My father spent the most of his life working to ensure that this house would be a generational heirloom once he was able to hand it down to his son, meaning me. On the other hand, I can imagine the situation where my sister only received the car and I received everything else might seem somewhat irritating from her perspective. That may be a source of frustration. I can understand that feeling, but it doesn't alter the facts of the will, nor does it justify their viewpoint or actions. Their entitlement cannot be rationalized in any manner, at least not in the way they attempted. Regarding my girlfriend filming the event, especially the part where my mother struck me and I pushed her back, I sometimes wonder if she was actually recording the whole time. It is possible that she merely yes-anded the scenario, playing along in an improvised manner and just saying, "Yeah, it was recording the whole time," to scare them. There was an excessive defensiveness displayed by my girlfriend and me when my mother and sister arrived. To put it simply, we were perplexed. In conclusion, my mother's exact statement, which was by far the most peculiar component of the entire incident, was, "I am God." In other words, when I say jump, you respond by asking how high. This house is rightfully mine. She was attempting to convince me to give her something she believed she deserved, for some reason, because she was my father's previous spouse, despite the fact that they divorced 10 years prior. It is weird that she referred to herself as God in the middle of an argument.